course, the mass breaker strategy. But one thing that the Orc does have is the ability to pump out a whole bunch of grunts, and the fact that the Farseer and the Tauren Chieftain really counter, the breakers really well, is actually an effective part of this strategy. Another thing that you can do is you can get a Beastmaster and go with the bear, or the bear as a summon. Or I guess you can go with the Tinker and you get the little bots. But, these are just different ways of producing the same amount of units or producing different units to counter breakers effectively. And by different units, I mean different hero summons. That might have sounded ridiculous. But you'll notice that the Shaman did a really good job of just allowing the heroes to focus down the regular units and the Shaman to really draw the humans' focus onto those units. Once again, nice use of Purge to almost save a grunt. As I said, almost save. Really good job of fending off the Expo here, or not fending off, of demolishing the Expo. So, once again, nice use of Purge to really get rid of everything. It really only takes one Purge to get rid of a Quill Beast, and really what you should do is just, Purge and then focus it down with one hit from your Farseer, and you're pretty much good to go. So, really, the strategy is, you get the human player to focus mostly on your Shaman. They'll get kind of out of position. Sure, they'll use their slow still. But, in the end, you just rely on your heroes to do most of the damage to their units. Which might sound ridiculous, but it is actually very effective because, if you think that your heroes won't do much damage, all you really have to do is wait for your TC to get a lightning shield on it and do some shockwave, and they're screwed. This strategy also works if you go, stomp, because you lightning shield, everything starts to kind of run, and then you stomp, and then they're screwed because then they take like an extra 50 or 55 damage. And with a whole bunch of casters, you really don't want to be taking much damage in the first place. So as Tauren Chieftain hits level 3, he also picks up a Sobi Mask. Really awesome item to have on your Tauren Chieftain because it really boosts, your mana by like 50% or something. So it's always a good thing to have on you. You'll notice that the one thing he is doing is continuing to produce grunts. Reason being is you don't want to just mass produce Shaman, you actually want to be able to counter the breakers as well, as opposed to just their summons. One thing to point out, this is kind of a shorter replay. It's kind of the best illustration that I could find of this particular strategy. If you like my use of big words, why thank you. One thing he is doing is preparing to set up the Expo, which is why his peon's just idling. This is always a good thing to do as an Orc player, to set up an Expo, but really you have to actually have the resources and kind of an advantage to do it. I guess he did kind of fend off the one Expo, but you really have to apply your advantage as soon as possible, otherwise it could wither away, such as the human player is setting up another Expo to make up for the fact that, his first Expo died, so, stuff like that. Nice use of attack move here. JK, no. He's done a good job of using the lightning shield because a whole bunch of the human units will usually clump together. Of course, the human did the smart thing and actually researched a spell, which is kind of a rare thing to see these days. So, as you can see, not much slow being casted, which is kind of interesting. With a lot more Shaman, it's kind of hard to slow all of those Shaman at the same time. So, it's kind of an interesting strategy to try. One thing to point out is that nothing works perfectly the first time you do it. So, if you're trying to do this and you're like, oh, it doesn't work, blah, 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 well, don't give up the first time. It's not always the best the first time. So yeah, one thing that happens is, the human player won't have enough slow to cast on all of your Shaman, and they'll be worried, oh no, he has mass magic units, I might as well get, spell breakers to counter them. And all you have to do as the Orc player is just spam grunts. And of course with your Tauren Chieftain, your Shadow Wolves or your Spirit Wolves, whatever wolves you have, your Dire Wolves, I guess, you can really do some damage to their breakers, so it kind of works out in your favor. Smart thing that the human player did was he purchased a retrain tome. Now I did talk about this in the Lin game for some reason, and I totally forgot that it happened in this game, is that he did purchase it. This also gives the Orc player kind of an economic advantage, but at the same time it gives you a disadvantage because you really have to worry about your Shaman a lot more. Because, the Blizzard really kicks the crap out of it, and by the time you're moving all your Shaman everywhere, and, your heroes and units are slowed, it's kind of hard to regain position with your Shaman, and they kind of get in the mix with their breakers. You'll notice he is losing a lot of units. He does get the nice little hero kill. And the one thing you do lose is you do lose the AoE Dispel, which is what the Spirit Walkers do have. And this means that you can't really purge off or dispel, things such as his nice little invis use. And for some reason, I don't know why, but the lower level players tend to use, the initiate strategies, or the adept spells. That's what I mean, as opposed to just the initiate. I don't know why this is, but it seems to be so much more effective. I don't know. I'd recommend using it. So pretty much the human got GG'd. He did kind of make a weird decision to Blizz when his hero was weak and in the middle of the Orcs units, but I guess it doesn't really matter because the game's kind of over anyways. It looked like the Orc player had a massive advantage in the end anyways. So pretty much not much else to say except for the fact that Noob Soviet kind of got owned in the face. No offense. I'm just saying that I guess accidents happen. And also, this is kind of a hard strategy to counter because you kind of have to go Breaker Priest. This way you get Dispel, you get Heal, and then, Grunts are less effective. And you kind of have to have a really nice unit mix with you. And it kind of eliminates the fact that, your Beastmaster is even there because all you can do is do some damage. And which is why it was smart of him to actually retrain for Blizzard, because this way he doesn't lose, the hero advantage by just summoning things that are going to get purged anyways. He just, has the ability to use Blizzard on him, but the problem is he spent so much, money on the retrain tome that kind of loses an advantage but gains an advantage at the same time. It's one of those tit for tat things. But, as a human player, if you face this strategy, good luck to you. It is very hard to counter. Pretty much the best thing you could probably do is go to tier 3 and hopefully get some air and I guess tower up and get an expo, but you didn't hear me say tower up because towers are kind of gay. So the Orc player using really nice use of positioning, kind of got out of positioning but got really back into it. Tauren Chieftain kind of surrounded, really not going to do much. And the one thing about the Tauren Chieftain is you really can't counter the breakers, which is why I'd recommend going something like Tinker or, a Beastmaster for the bears. The only thing that you lose is the ability to counter their sorceress as well, which is, the only thing that the Tauren Chieftain is there for is for the initial counter on the casters.